whenever you're ready.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Hey guys, it's Cal from the Lighting Doctor. We're on another project here just off the Elbow River in Calgary. This is going to be a fun project because we're doing a couple different things, but like always, we're sticking to really the 2 or 3 core lights that we use in most of our projects. What we're really focusing in on this project is highlighting the home and the architectural features of the home, especially so that as the bystanders are walking by or driving by, that's where they really get to experience the lighting effects on this house. So that's what we're going to do, and you're going to notice with a lot of the lights we position that we're focusing on a lot more of these architectural structures of this home.
Like this, probably with music or something. And you can start.
I can go whenever.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the first light we're going to be using on this project is kind of our standard, our up and accent light. This is the one that if you take advantage of the try it before you buy it offer, we'll actually send you one of these at a discounted rate that you can actually go and play with and see how it's going to look like on your property just by hooking a simple 9-volt battery up to the terminals. But where we're going to use it here is really highlighting some of the architectural features of the front of this home. So they've got some beautiful stonework, and we're going to be putting these at the base of all these pillars. There's about 6 or 8 of them on the property, and a good tip is anytime you can hide the fixture behind a bush, a shrub, a rock, or anything, it's a great way to do it because again, you want to see the effect and not necessarily the actual fixture. So we're going to place this just behind the plant. You don't want to have it too close to the building because otherwise you create a big hot spot. So we are about 12 to 18 inches back because we just want to make sure we get that light all the way to the top. So that's going to be our first use of this light, and then we're also going to be lighting up some trees as well.
Okay.
So the next use of our uplight is going to be the traditional style where we're using it to accent a tree. And I often get asked, well, how many lights should I use on each tree? It really depends on the size of the tree and what you're looking for, but on any smaller tree, usually one light is going to be enough. But I always tell people, make sure you leave lots of extra wire at the base because if you want to add more lights down the road, you can do that. And as that tree grows, you're probably going to want to do that. But this is a bigger tree. We've got a multi-branch tree here with a couple big stems, so we're going to use 2 lights. We're going to use one on this side and one on the other side, and we're going to focus it up on these trunks and try and get it all the way to the upper part of the canopy. And anytime you've got a tree that has multiple stems, multiple trunks, you're definitely going to want to use more than one light. And the bigger the tree, I mean, oftentimes 3-4 lights is not overdoing it. If it's a really important featured tree, I think the more lights you can get on it to get the canopy and the trunks really highlighted well is going to make a big effect in your landscape.
Okay, so it's running and when you're ready.
So 2 other lights we're going to use on this project. These again are 2 of my favorite lights. We're going to be using a LF wall light. This is going to be a nice barbecue area, and they're going to have a nice stone tabletop on here that's actually going to lean over and cover this. So really all you're going to see is the lighting effect on the stonework on the base of this. I like this light because you can tuck it just about anywhere and it totally disappears, and all you really see is the effect. So we've basically got 4 of those around this barbecue area. And then the other light we're going to use is we have a nice pergola that we're going to have some hanging lights that we're going to feature on the top of these. We're only putting 2 because we don't need to light up the whole area. We're just trying to create a nice ambient light. So that's why we've chosen our VE hanging light also for this project. So again, 2 of my favorite lights, and we're going to use them in this project also. So now that we've selected our lights, I often talk about you got to go and just place all the lights roughly where you want them. You're going to want to come back at night, see how everything looks, because you might want to make some adjustments. But usually I'll go around and just do that. Just dig a small hole, place the lights, get them set where I think I want them, and leave lots of room, because the other thing I always suggest is leave lots of extra wire at every single fixture so that if you do need to move them, you're not having to cut wires. You can just move the light around and you've got lots of wire to play with. And the other reason you want to dig that big hole is because then you can easily hide that wire and bury it nice and snug when you're all done. So it's really the first step is placing your lights, laying out the wire, and then going to get everything wired up, which I'll show you how we do now. Yeah, so I am going to explain this first. You probably can't do it without. Okay.
Yeah, I'm filming.
You're good? Okay.
Yeah.
So sometimes I get asked, you know, can I cut into a wire and tee off? Say I've got one light that's off in the distance and I want to cut into this and just add an extra wire out to a certain area. And yes, you definitely can. That's why we put two kinds of connectors in all our do-it-yourself kits, and it's really simple to do. Is you just take your line that you need to cut into, and again, make sure you've got some extra wire to play with. Cut into it. You're going to strip off the ends of both sides of that wire. And you only need to strip about, you know, 3/4 of an inch to an inch off the ends of that is all you need. And then with whatever wire that you're going to run out to your fixture now, you lay that out and you're going to strip the ends off of that as well. And now, because this is slightly different than when you're wiring a fixture, you notice we've got 3 sets of wires and they're all larger wires. So with the typical BVS2 snap lock connectors that we use, you're not going to fit all those in there. So what we use is something called a DBRY connection. So basically from those 3 wires you just spliced, you're going to connect one wire from each of those together, twist them tight with your Marette, and then very simply you take your DBRY gel filled connector that's full of gel that keeps the water out. It slides right on there and then it snaps tight on the wires, and that connection is not going to come apart on you. So that's why we use that anytime we have to tee in, and you're going to do the exact same thing with your other set of 3 wires. Wire those together, throw on your Marette, use your gel filled connector, push it in the tube, and then snap those tight. And that's how you're going to tee off if you need to tee off just one wire to another fixture.
You can start.
Okay, so the last thing we're going to show you is how to connect your fixtures. So at every fixture you're going to have two connectors. And we use these BVS2 snap lock ones because they're gel filled, they keep the water out, and they easily snap down on the wires to keep them from pulling apart, which is important so that you're not having to go redo connections down the road. But basically the way this works is pretty simple. With low voltage direct burial cable, there is no positive and no negative charges, so it doesn't matter which 2 wires get connected, but you'll have your wire that comes into your fixture and then your wire that keeps going to the next fixture. All you have to do is take one wire from each of those and then one wire from your fixture, because you're going to have 2, and then you just connect those together. So basically you just slide them into the ports. And your fixture wire, snap them tight, and then those won't pull apart, and then you do the same thing for the other set of wires into the ports. Your fixture wire, snap that down, and then that's it. Your fixture's wired. And I always, just for a little extra added measure, you probably don't need to, but just to be safe, I always throw a little electrical tape on the base just to help and really make sure those wires don't pull apart. Yep. We'll go back to that. So we we are using a couple path lights on this project. One area we're going to use them is just to kind of create some balance between lighting up some of the architectural stone pillars on the front of the house, and then in between we're throwing a couple path lights from place to place, just so as you're looking at it from the street or the sidewalk, there's a nice balance of light between the uplights on the pillars and then some of the garden lighting that's going to be down below. So that's primarily where we're going to be using path lights in this area. And as always, we try and use as few as possible unless it makes sense. And in this case, we've got about 6 to 8 path lights that are just going to create a nice balance of light throughout this property.
Okay.
So I'll just share with you guys one little trick, something called a hex baffle. Where we use these is just to deflect the glare off the uplight. So sometimes if you have an uplight like this that's close to an area where people are going to be walking, it's not necessarily going to be pointing in their face or in their eyes or anything, but just to help keep that light a little bit more concentrated when they're looking at it from an angle. We're using something called a hex baffle. It basically just slides underneath the cap of your light. It goes over the lens, over the light and under the lens, and snaps back on. And then all that's going to do is just deflect the light that's being maybe portrayed that way. So as somebody looking down, they're not going to see a light shining right up in your eyes. So this is a great little tip to use anytime you have a high traffic area where people might be walking by the light, so they're not shining directly into their eyes. Yeah,
I'm shooting already.
Okay. So the last thing I'm going to explain on this property is a transformer and how to size that properly. I'm not mounting this one right here, but anytime you're going to mount this, you want to just mount it close to a GFCI receptacle, somewhere that you can plug it in. And all that does is it converts that 110 volt power that comes out of the house down to 12 or 15 volt that is going to go to your system. And that's what makes it low voltage, and that's what makes it safe to handle. And I always get asked, well, how deep do I need to bury the wires? Do they need to be to code? Do they need to be 12 inches, 24 inches? And because it's low voltage, really they only got to be deep enough that you're not going to be digging them up. If a dog bit into him and chewed on your wire, he's barely even going to feel anything. So there is really no regulations in our area anyway as to how deep you have to bury those, because that wire does get converted into very safe 12 volt as it is in the ground. So how we select our transformer is based on wattage. So for example, this is a 150 watt transformer from FX Luminaire, and the way we determine this one is pretty simple. We have approximately 30 lights on this property, and each of those lights averages just over 4 watts. So 30 times 4 is 120. So we're only using 120 watts, or only require 120 watts for this project. But you always want to size your transformer approximately 20% higher, just to cure any inefficiencies or anything like that, and give a little bit of extra room. Also, if you ever want to add on down the road. So 150 watt transformer will easily handle our load of lights. And the other reason I like this one too is this actually has a 15 volt tap here. So if you watch a lot of old videos on YouTube about landscape lighting, they talk a lot about voltage drop. That's because most of those landscapers and those designers are using halogen fixtures. If you're getting a quote for a system and somebody's still quoting you on a halogen fixture, I would run for the hills, because they're really just trying to sell you a cheaper system. It doesn't make any sense nowadays with LED. And the reason that we can run 30 lights on one transformer is because LED uses so much less power. You might save money on the fixtures by going the halogen route, but then you're gonna have to get a massive transformer to run that, and you've got to be really careful on how you run the wire and voltage drop and all those types of things. What I'm telling you is that if you choose a transformer like this that has a 15 volt tap, you can run 20 to 30 lights off of this transformer, upwards of 300 plus feet of wire out, without ever having to worry about enough voltage drop, because a good quality fixture is going to run even if it only gets 9 volts on it. A crappy quality fixture is not going to, but if you get a good one, they're all designed to run between 9 and 10 volts, which means you can lose a lot of power along the way, and a light is still going to run properly. So another reason why you don't want to skimp on a fixture, because it is going to cause you more problems down the road. And then to run this, there's a couple ways you can do that. The way I like is just by adding something called an astronomic timer that basically uses sunrise and sunset to program everything and turn your lights on and off. Or the other option is to make this go Wi-Fi by using our Weon Wi-Fi transformer, which you can easily make this a Wi-Fi transformer now that you can operate from anywhere in the world. So that's how you size a transformer. It's really basically simple. 30 lights. 30 lights.
I'm
Sorry guys, big
like
truck just went by, but you can easily fit 30 lights on this transformer, LED lights, and run those 300 feet out without having any issues. So I hope that explains how you size your transformer.
Good. What is dog very small?
Huh?
It can hit the 16 wall.
What's that?
When dog is very small and it will chew the wire.
Yeah.
So it will hit him, right?
Yeah, but it won't hurt.
Oh, okay. Because I think it depends.
Yeah, so when it comes time to burying your wire, just creating a simple trench. Again, you don't have to go super deep because it's just low voltage wire, but just making your life a little easier by creating a trench. If you get a tool, something like this, it works really well to help push that wire down nice and deep into the ground. And then if you need to, just as an extra measure, just some landscape staples is not a bad idea to throw on the wire in a couple different places just to make sure it doesn't come up, because if you go and put mulch down on this at a later date and you're raking that in, sometimes you can snag the wire. A simple landscape staple will help keep that wire down so that you're not pulling up those wires. The advantage is if you're using good connectors, you don't have to worry about those pulling apart anyway, but if you want to help keep that wire buried, landscape staples is a really easy way to do that.